All right, thank you, Brenda, and Chris for that presentation. Um, Next we have Spin. So they're going to be talking about some of their programs, and yeah, please give a warm hand to Shiraz.
Hello, everyone. So thank you so much for inviting us to be here. We're very excited to be chatting with you a little bit more about SPIN and how we represent Davis. I'm Shiraz Rosenthal. I'm our government partnerships manager with SPIN. And I'm also here with Shane, right over there. He is our regional operations manager, and he'll be helping us run some test rides after the presentation. Slide. So I'll be talking a little bit about SPIN. I'll talk a little bit about our technology, and I'll also talk about our approach to safety. And finally, give you some data and talk a little bit more about SPIN in Davis. So firstly, our team, I did just introduce myself, but I did want to introduce other folks who are on our team. We have Kylie Floodman, who's our senior government partnerships manager working with our university. And we also have Jack Mobley, who is our market manager, and he works locally with the Davis team. So a little bit about us. We were founded in 2016, and we currently operate in over 90 cities and university campuses across the United States. Back in 2023, we were bought by a company called Bird, which is another shared micromobility vendor. And we brought kind of the best of both worlds between Spin and Bird. So Bird was more technologically focused, where Spin as a company is very university and partnerships focused, and having some of the best hardware in the shared micromobility markets. Something that's unique about the Davis market is it's part of our collection of university-centric cities. So we have about 30 or more of those with Spin, and UC Davis and Davis is one of those amazing partnerships that we have as a company. So just to talk a little bit about our values, and our approach is to work with cities and universities to best understand the needs of each individual place. So the great thing about shared micromobility is we have the ability to directly work with cities to figure out what works best for them and how to cater a program for the people there. So Davis has been an incredible partner with us and consistently thinking through innovation and collaborating and finding solutions by looking at ridership trends and influencing regulation. So for example, we've worked with the city and the university to figure out a flexible parking model. So if you're riding Spin in downtown Davis or UC Davis, you would have to park at a designated bike rack or a parking corral, and that would be the requirement in those areas. But if you're around other parts of Davis, it's a little bit more flexible in our lock to model. So you can lock the vehicle to an element of the right of way, a different bike rack, and it allows for more flexible shared micromobility overall. So our day-to-day operations, we're 100% local W-2 employees that help with the Davis team. We're also a industry leading in technology, and actually are able to enforce parking with our geo technology, which I'll talk about a little bit later. We do lots of community engagement, such as this, talking to you and getting to know folks in our communities so we can learn about what is important to you in the shared micromobility space. And we also do equity programming, which is on our next slide. Next slide, yeah, our Spin Access program. So transportation is the key to a more equitable world, right? We want to get people connected to where they need to go. So the most vulnerable communities, usually in cities, are ones who may rely more heavily on alternative modes of transportation to get to where they need to go. So whether that's public transit, walking, biking, rolling, right? So if you qualify for government assistance, whether it's SNAP or even if you're a student, you qualify for a Pell Grant, for example, you can qualify for Spin Access, which basically cuts the cost in half significantly. So the typical cost to ride is about $1 in Davis to unlock the vehicle, and then 32 cents per minute. But if you qualify for Spin Access, that brings it down to 50 cents to unlock the vehicle and 10 cents per minute. So it does bring down the cost significantly. And we do have low tech options where you can text to unlock a vehicle. So if you don't have access to a smartphone and you can't access our app, there is a way that if you're qualified for spin access that you can text that number to unlock the vehicle. So I'll move into our tech. Any questions before I move on? Totally. All right, awesome. So our tech, firstly, our Spin app, which I encourage all of you to download. When you do download the app, you'll create an account and accept our liability waiver. If you are going to test ride our vehicles, you do need to sign one of those, but we do have a form for that as well. But if you do have our app and show it to us, you can test ride our vehicles. But all you got to do when you download the app, you fill out the info, put a credit or debit card information, and you're ready to go. So when you're out in the city, you find a vehicle, whether that's out in the world or on our app, it'll tell you more information about the vehicle, like the location, how much of a charge it has, and even the cost. And then when you find that vehicle, you use our app to unlock it with the QR code on the top of the vehicle. And then once you're unlocked, you're good to go. But at the end of the ride, you do take a picture of your vehicle and to make sure that you've parked correctly. So a little bit about our Spin S100 scooter. Shane will talk a little bit more about it if you come over and test ride some of our vehicles. This is one of our most popular scooters, and we do have this one in Davis. A few notes that I'll mention with regard to the vehicle. All of our vehicles have GPS technology that help with regulation within the city. But there's a couple of things that you might notice. So number 4 over here, you have the lock itself. So that helps with the flexible parking model in Davis. So you can lock to an element on the right of way. We also have a dual kickstand, which is number 6 down there. But the dual kickstand helps the vehicle stay propped up so it doesn't fall over, and it keeps the vehicle where it needs to be. So it's less likely to tip over. And then we also have brake lights in the back and forwards for safety of the vehicle as well. And then on our next slide, you'll see our e-bike, which has similar features to the scooter. One of the big differences I will mention, other than the fact that it's a bike and not a scooter, is that it does have a further range, up to 50 miles in range for the vehicle, with the same built-in GPS system, cable locks, and lights and headlights for safety reasons. So this is my favorite technology that we have with Spin. It's our GeoZone technology. And there's a few different ones that we use, and we collaborate with the city of Davis and as well as other cities that we work with to enforce parking and riding. So firstly, we have our no ride zones. There's areas in the city that we're able to use our technology to mark those areas to make sure that folks aren't riding in those zones. And how we do that, so when you're riding the vehicle, if you approach a no ride zone, the vehicle will automatically slow you down to an uncomfortable speed, something closer to 3 miles per hour. So uncomfortable that you have to get off the vehicle and walk it to an area that would allow you to ride it. So that's the first one. Secondly, we have the no parking zone, which, like I mentioned, we have different types of parking in Davis. So if you're riding at UC Davis and you get to a parking corral area or a bike rack, you must park in that area. And those are required parking. But if you try parking in another spot, our technology will not allow you to do that. And it directs you to park in an area that is directed where the bike rack is. And then finally, slow zones. So if there's certain parts of the city where maybe the city works with us and says, hey, we don't want people riding really fast here, we can reduce the speed limit. So all of our vehicles are up to 15 miles per hour in Davis, and that's a regulation we have. But with slow zones, we can reduce the speed limit if needed in certain maybe residential areas or places that you might not want someone riding super fast. So our operational procedures, we don't deploy in areas that we abide by city code. We want to make sure we're abiding by ADA regulation, and we won't intentionally deploy in places like in the middle of the sidewalk or along the pedestrian right of way. So we avoid those curb cuts, those ramps, and those doorways. But in the event there is a misparked vehicle, our technology will alert our operations if it detects something that's improperly parked. And our team is able to issue warnings and fines for improperly parked devices. So our team is really excellent here in Davis. We typically respond within 2 hours of a vehicle being reported to us. 32 minutes, so faster. That's our current time. So we respond very quickly in Davis. But I will mention something additional that our team does is we review every rider's end of ride photo to look at compliance, and we'll implement an escalating ride structure. So meaning that if you're someone who parks incorrectly, we'll reach out to you and we'll tell you you're not doing it correctly. We'll issue a warning, but if you continue to do it and we realize that, we can issue fines and escalate those fines. But if you do see an improperly parked vehicle in Davis, we do have an email, agsupport@spin.pm, so please let us know. Our approach to safety. So we do have a holistic approach to safety. There's lots of ways that you can do safety with a micromobility program, whether that's the technology, the vehicles themselves, or even just in-person engagement like this and working with people in that way. So many avenues to enforce good behavior and deter bad behavior. With regard to user education, we're doing in-app notifications. So if you have the app, you can get a notification on your phone, and sometimes that notification is either a promotion, but sometimes it's also a safety notification. We also, when you're riding the app when you're riding for the first time, there is an in-app safety model. And today was my first time riding in Davis with Spin. So it actually showed me, like, it did a safety quiz for me, and it'll tell you exactly like, oh, do you wear a helmet? And it says, yes, you should wear a helmet. But this is an example of what that looks like. And we're able to cater each one for the cities that we work in. Some top 6 messages that we do have with Spin. So of course, wearing a helmet, make sure you slow your roll. So if you see a pedestrian moving, make sure you're cognizant of that. Obeying the local traffic laws, riding sober. We don't want anyone riding under the influence. Staying clear of large turning vehicles, and then don't block the walk when you park. So don't block the pedestrian right away. So a little bit more about Spin and Davis and some of our data. So with Davis, we do have custom operations here, kind of like I'm alluding to throughout the presentation. But there's a lot that we do to collaborate with the city and the university to have a customized program with Spin. So firstly, our fleet can be up to 1,000 vehicles. So we have a mixture of e-scooters and e-bikes. And we work with the city to create a program that works with the existing infrastructure. So we look at where bike routes are. We look at everything in the city, and we work with the city to figure out, hey, maybe this is where parking should be. And we work and collaborate with them for that. So some data, just between January through March of this year, we had over 64,000 rides. And this is like fewer rides than typical. This is kind of like slow season for us. But we do see increased ridership in Davis overall. There's lots of really amazing riders in Davis, and they keep riding Spin, which is great. We have 1.2 miles on average. That's the average trip length. We've saved over 10 metric tons in just 3 months. We've also had over 7,000 unique users in Davis in the past 3 months. And something that's really unique is that there's a person who's riding in Davis with Spin is riding over 9 times per month, which is well above average. Usually someone who's riding with us is about 2 to 3 rides per month. So this is a really excellent statistic. Thank you. And then a couple of other fun facts. So 40% of all riders are riding frequent routes. So think about your commuter who's using Spin. 5% were first-time rides. 6% are rides connecting to transit, 30% are using coupon codes, 28% of all rides are taken using a ride pass. And then finally, we aimed at 38% of rides were taken by locals versus 62% taken by tourists. I will mention with this particular statistic that we use zip codes to determine this, and there could be the case where there's UC Davis students, for example, who don't actually have a zip code in Davis and they are locals, right? So that statistic's a little bit, take with a grain of salt. And then finally, with community engagement, we do partner with the city, local organizations like Davis and the Chamber to make a positive impact and share information about safety and promote our service. So we do pop-up notifications about maybe Aggie game days, and we'll do promotional codes and engagement. So there's a couple of things that we do to make sure we're working with the community and the city overall. And with that, I thank you.